Hey, aren't we supposed to sow seeds instead? Do you think these plants will grow? Let's find out. Welcome to this lesson on asexual reproduction in plants. At the end of this lesson, you will be able to explain the various types of asexual reproduction in plants. This is Reuben, a 12-year-old boy. He is off for his morning walk.
This seems strange. Can we grow new plants without seeds?
New plants can be grown even without the seeds. We know that the process of producing young ones is called reproduction. The young one looks similar to the parent plant. There are several ways by which plants produce their offspring, or young ones. These are mainly divided into two types: sexual and asexual. The sexual mode of reproduction involves the fusion of the male and the female gametes to form seeds that eventually develop into a new plant. The seeds are formed inside the fruit. On the other hand, in the asexual mode of reproduction, a new plant is grown from any other part of the plant other than the seeds. So, how does asexual reproduction take place? There are different methods by which plants reproduce asexually. They are vegetative propagation, budding, fragmentation, and spore formation. Let's look at each of these methods in detail. We know that most plants have roots, stems, and leaves. These are called the vegetative parts of the plant. When new plants are produced from these parts, the process is called vegetative propagation.
Is it possible to grow new plants like this?
I guess so. The rose plant can be grown by cutting off a part of its stem with 2 or more nodes and planting it in the ground. A node is a part of the stem from where a leaf arises. This stem grows into a new rose plant. Plants using the vegetative method of propagation include sugarcane, banana, and grapes.
This plant looks so different. It has small leaves growing on bigger leaves.
These are the buds of a bryophyllum plant. This plant has buds on the edges of its leaves. When the buds come in contact with moist soil, each bud is capable of growing into a new plant. The plants that use buds for vegetative propagation are potato, ginger, and turmeric, amongst others.
He just removed a swollen root and planted it in the soil, little away from the parent plant. Is this swollen root capable of producing a new plant?
This swollen root is known as a tuber. The root grows into tubers, which are the food storage tanks for these plants. When these tubers are detached from the parent plant and planted into the soil, they grow into a new plant. A plant that grows from a single root tuber, branch and rebranch, thereby covering a large area. A number of root tubers are produced by a single plant. Another such plant that is grown from the tuber is the dahlia plant.
That's surprising. There was only a small green patch a week ago. Today the complete pond is green in color.
Algae, the simplest green plants, are thread-like and grow in ponds, lakes, and stagnant waters. They float on the surface of the water. They reproduce by a method known as fragmentation. An alga breaks up into smaller fragments. Each of these smaller fragments grows into a new independent alga. This process is continuous, and hence the algae covers a large area in a short span of time.
That's surprising. There was only a small green patch a week ago. Today the complete pond is green in color.
Algae, the simplest green plants, are thread-like and grow in ponds, lakes, and stagnant waters. They float on the surface of the water. They reproduce by a method known as fragmentation. An alga breaks up into smaller fragments. Each of these smaller fragments grows into a new independent alga. This process is continuous, and hence the algae covers a large area in a short span of time.
It's been quite some time since I had bread and eggs. Oops! This is an old loaf of bread. I remember buying this a week ago. It has gone bad. There is some cotton-like mass on it.
This white mass on the bread is called mold. It is a type of fungus that grows on moist organic surfaces like leather shoes, moist walls, etc. This fungus reproduces by means of spores. These spores are very light and are covered by a hard protective coat. That is the reason why they can survive in extreme conditions like high temperature and low humidity. As these spores are very light, they float and cover long distances in the air. When they fall on a suitable medium, they germinate and develop to form new plants. A few other examples of plants that use the same method of reproduction are ferns and moss.
I'm starving. Let me treat myself to some bread and eggs.
Congratulations! You have successfully completed this lesson on asexual reproduction in plants. You will now be able to explain the various types of asexual reproduction in plants.
Sexual reproduction in plants. As we have studied earlier about different parts of flowers. In flower, sepals and petals are non-reproductive parts, whereas stamens and carpels are the reproductive parts of a flower because they contain germ cells. The flowers are of two types. 1. Unisexual. 2. Bisexual. In unisexual flowers, it contains either stamens or carpels. Example: papaya, watermelon. In bisexual flowers, it contains both stamens and carpels. Stamens. Stamen is the male reproductive part. It produces yellowish colored pollen grain. Carpels. Carpel is the female reproductive part, which is present in the center of the flower. As we see in the image, we can notice a swollen bottom part in the center of the flower, which is called as ovary. The middle elongated part is called as style, and the terminal part at the top of the flower is called as stigma, which may be sticky. Inside the ovary, it consists of ovules, and each ovule has an egg cell, which is the female gamete. In the flower, the male and female reproductive structures, the andrecium and the gynoecium, differentiate and develop. As you had studied in the previous classes, that the andrecium consists of a whorl of stamens representing the male reproductive organ, and the gynoecium represents the female reproductive organ.